Today is going to be the last day in our lives that we're going to have to struggle around the holidays. And so let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today. In this next 30 minutes, I'm going to help you feel prepared, supported, and truly fulfilled, because I know how it is to drive up the driveway and sit there in the car and be like, I just, mentally, I know what's going to happen. I know so-and-so is going to say something, and I know I'm going to get triggered. So what we're going to do today is just kind of plan for the upcoming gathering. We're going to figure out how we want to respond to the climate in the room when we walk into a room of people we haven't seen in a few months or maybe a few years because of COVID. And then how to feel loved and supported. One of the main things that has motivated me to even start telling my story and to start the podcast and create a coaching community is so we can all feel connected. As we know, there are so many of us that just struggle in silence. And what we want to uncover today is why we carry that burden with us, why it feels so heavy. And I know that there's so many women out there that are feeling the same things. We talked about that already. And why it is that we feel shame around our story or lack around us as women if we don't walk in with a child, or if you're not married yet, if you don't have a spouse or a partner that every year you just sort of feel like all eyes are on you when you walk into that gathering. I created the holiday guide. So I think most of you who registered for this call have received the guide. And the guide is great. It has a lot of good tools in it. So I'm going to go over the guide today and, just kind of a general way of how you can use it. And also, we're going to talk about some of the mistakes that people make and why this topic's important and why being childless around the holidays doesn't have to feel heavy forever. In the guide, there are some prompts. So if you have the guide handy, great. If not, you can jot some things down, but we're going to go through some of the prompts, and those prompts, like I said, they were super profound for me and kind of helped me uncover some of the sticking points or the fear that I had about the holiday times and feeling so lonely and isolated because I didn't have the kid to dress up to go and, sit on Santa's lap, or the cute little onesies, baby's first Christmas, the holiday ornaments, all these things that I just so yearned to have one day. And when that wasn't my reality, I found myself just feeling stuck in my thoughts, but I never really understood what I was feeling. I just knew that I was feeling depleted all the time, or feeling like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't providing to my family and helping grow the family. And coming from an ethnic family, family's super important, and it's very generational and passing down customs. And so I had a lot of judgment for myself. So doing the journal prompts, I think, were really helping me and just sorting out what junk was going on in my mind. So it's a great tool, but it wasn't what made the permanent shift in my life. And that's really what I teach in my container, my group coaching and my one-on-one, is just to how to uncover your thoughts. So the journal prompts will be good for that. But if you want to see lifelong transformations and address how lonely you feel because you're not a mom, and maybe the disappointment you're feeling because you couldn't bring a child into your family, that's where the coaching really comes in. And that's where I've spent a lot of my time growing beyond my infertility and deciding that when I go to my cousin's house, I'm going to show up and feel proud of who I am, even though I don't have a child, and not have to feel nervous if somebody asks me a question, because let's be honest, some of these people you might not have seen for a while, and Aunt Sally or Tetka Yuba might not know that you have been going through infertility, or that you have been having sadness that you don't have a baby. And some people just don't even know what infertility is. They've been fertile their whole lives. They came from families that had 6 or 8 kids, and they don't even think that women like us exist that have been struggling to have a child or to find a partner to have a child with. And so your childlessness may become a topic at your Thanksgiving and with your family. And you might be hearing things like, oh, time's running out, or you really need to get on it, or time is ticking. And all of that is making you feel really uncomfortable and incomplete and lacking. And maybe your mom can be running interference for you. I don't know if anyone has a mom like mine. She is not afraid to let her be heard. And she is always very willing to be like, listen, Lana's not wanting to talk about that this year. So maybe you can have your mom run interference, or maybe you have a cousin that you're close with, and you can be like, hey, Jen, do me a favor, have your mom tell so-and-so, like, just not to bring anything up. I'm not up for talking about it. But if we go in there and we don't have a plan for how we want our data to sort of roll out for us, because we can't anticipate everything that people are going to say. So if we don't have a plan, then we're going to get sidetracked by these questions. What's a good, like, let's take a few minutes here. I like to do this with my students, is like, let's just take a few minutes and let's think, like, what's an answer you want to come up with? It doesn't have to be a perfect answer, but think about, like, what's something that you can say that feels true to you and like preserves your energy. Maybe something like, oh, thanks for asking, I'm not up for talking about it. Maybe thanks for asking, but it's not going to happen for us, but I appreciate your support. Maybe thinking of some ways that sets boundaries for you and lets people know, like, this is not going to happen for us. You can stop wondering. And if they feel sorry for you, I know for me, that was a big thing. Like, I just felt so uncomfortable with people feeling sorry for me, because I was always like the very strong one in our family, the one who was successful, who had a great career. And I felt very uncomfortable with people feeling sorry for me. So think about, before you even start the holidays, like, what are some canned answers or canned things that you want to make available for you to just not have your mind start to go into this spiral of, oh my God, she's asking me, I knew this was going to happen. But you can go in there and just feel prepared. So just like play that scenario in your mind and start to think about, like, okay, when I see Aunt so-and-so, or when I walk in that door, like, what energy do I want to feel? Do I want to feel in there? Do I want to walk in there already feeling like ready to go for the eyeballs and be like, if she even asks me, you better just watch how I'm going to respond? Or do I want to go in there feeling an energy that's like, you know what? I haven't been together with my family in so long at Thanksgiving, and I'm just going to tell myself, just for the next 2 hours, I'm going to go in there and just feel such gratitude for seeing this person. Or maybe we lost some family members since COVID, and show love to these existing members of my family that are still here. So prepare that energy for yourself of how you want to walk in going. This can translate, like, to other parts in your life. Because let's be honest, we have those people at work that are like, oh, any babies yet? Or people at work that are talking about their holidays and the fun things they're doing with their family, and the family, Christmas photos. And so when we start to understand that we can have these like prepared moments in our mind already available to us, and when we've played it out, those scenarios in our mind, we can just learn to have things happen around us, but not feel like we need to deplete our energy in the words or the experiences that other people are having. So when we get very clear on these type of like mental exercises, it becomes a lifelong practice. And that's, something that I work on with my students, is really being mentally prepared, knowing what we're feeling, knowing how we want to react to things. And so at the end of this call, I'm going to really get clear. Hopefully you'll be clear on how to eliminate the heaviness that comes along with infertility, so that you can create a life that goes beyond that you don't always have to identify yourself first as somebody who's childless or somebody who's infertile. And I know how that feels, because I did it for a long time. And when I started to realize that I could show up and just be proud of who I am, and proud that even though my dream of becoming a mom didn't happen the way that I wanted it to, or the outcome of my fertility treatments didn't bring me the child that I dreamed I would, I could still be proud of who I was. And I decided that I didn't want to identify as somebody who was childless first. That was certainly part of my story. And it was certainly part of who I wanted to be in my future. And I just had to start practicing it early and often. So I'm going to do my best to try to give you opportunities to create more of that in your life. How do you want to feel about showing up to your holidays this year? For me, it might be complete, joyful, confident, secure. Some people I know feel like it's not fair. Like, why can't I just walk into Thanksgiving and not have to do all this mind work ahead of time? Some of the mistakes I think that maybe we've made in the past is just not having that plan, not visualizing where we're going to be when we walk in that door, kind of like creating that energy for us. And instead of feeling like it shouldn't be this hard, or I shouldn't have to do all this work, and I should be able to, all the shoulds and the shoulding all over yourself. I'm sure you all heard that term before. But when we think of things like I should be somewhere, like what if we are just where we are and we're lucky that we have these tools? Like for me, if I didn't discover coaching and I didn't realize that I could think a different way about myself, I would be wasting so many years of my life just feeling regret or just feeling like I wasn't good enough. But how I feel lucky that I have these tools that could prepare me, because not only did they prepare me for the holidays, like they prepared me to do so much more. And had I not had resources of thought work and deciding ahead of time and all the things that I teach in my community, I would be missing out on so much of my life that now feels so great that I was like giving away to my childlessness and to my infertility. So although it may seem like it's harder for us to feel the fulfillment that we want to feel or to get to that point, I guarantee you that, not trying to compare to the people with kids, but they probably don't have the tools and the knowledge that we have. That everything is wrapped up into being a mom. And to us on the outside, that might seem like that is the magic ticket. But whether you have a child or not, the ability to just really read your mind and know what you're capable of as just being this human being is really such a great gift. And when I started realizing the power that I had to create the life that I wanted, even though it looked so different than I ever thought it would, I started to feel like this lightness in my life. And people would come up to me, and it was like this crazy significant shift that literally people would be like, Lana, you're glowing. And I would be like, really? And, they didn't know I was working with a coach, and they didn't know that I was working on all this stuff behind the scenes. And then I started thinking about when you hear like somebody has a glow, it's usually what? The pregnancy glow, right? Everyone's like, oh, you're glowing. You have that pregnancy glow. And then I was like, how ironic that people are telling me, like, literally they chose that adjective of glowing to describe me. And I was like, well, shit, maybe I don't need to like have a baby inside of me to feel like I'm glowing. So all this stuff that is available to us, but we get so pointed, I guess is the right word, to only allowing motherhood or a child to give us that feeling of fullness and glow and that pride that we want to have so badly, but we think we're not deserving of it because we haven't had a child. Like that shit is available like right now. And that is what has been so magical for me to realize in my own life, because I wasn't somebody who was like a woo person. I was very much like, came from an immigrant family. You work hard, you go to school, you get your degree, you let people know that you'll do anything to be successful and that you're smart. and that, you're not lazy, like all these things that had me feeling very like if I gave more and more of myself, then I would be rewarded. But the truth is, like, if we just look at ourselves and realize we're worth reward right now, the magic just happens on its own. And so the pride that I have, even knowing that my life didn't turn out like it would, like I thought it would, or that people maybe feel sorry for me, like they're allowed to feel sorry for me. But if I don't feel sorry for me, and let's not get confused, not feeling sorry for yourself is not the same as like feeling compassion. And you might have heard me talk about that self-pity versus self-compassion episode on the podcast. I could feel like, of course, I feel sad around the holidays. I don't like wake up and click my heels when I see somebody's, child, on Facebook, the pictures of them sitting on Santa's lap. But I could be like, yeah, of course you wanted to know what that felt like. So learning how to feel self-compassion instead of feeling like I'll never feel happy because I don't have a child to sit and take pictures with Santa or write a letter to Santa. What if for us, it just happens to be like another date on the calendar? And I think we put a lot of pressure on a date for us to feel a certain way. New Year's too. And I'm like, what if I don't want to go to a bar with 800 people waiting in line for a glass of cheap champagne? Like, what if it's just like another date on the calendar and I do my own practice? I think we all have these same things, but like no one talks about it. We just stay like so siloed, like something's wrong with us, that we're not excited or that we don't feel connected or that, we don't feel like the attention's on us yet. We've been like slaving in the kitchen. I mean, I know because I'm the family holiday person. I do Christmas for like 20 some people and I'm like up till 5 a.m. cooking. And then I'm like, y'all, people are going to come here and it's not about me. And so what if we just decide like, maybe that's our gift? We don't have a child to give. So maybe cooking and providing for my family is like what I'm showing up with this holiday. And that's my addition. And as my legacy, continues to grow, people are like, oh my gosh, like Lana always had the greatest holidays. Because that's like the memory that I'm creating for my family. So I'm just offering that as like a thought, and, maybe think about like, how can you feel recognized and gratified? Like, what is it that you're looking for? And maybe that's the greatest contribution you're offering to your family. The journal prompts. So let me tell you, I call journaling paper thinking because for me, I noticed that there was like always like this stuff like swirling in my mind, and I wasn't exactly sure how I was, making it through the day, but I just knew at the end of the day, I would just feel like sort of blah and just, I got through another day and it would almost be like, okay, check that off the box. And it was like, oh, we'd get home and I would just be like, oh, thank God. Okay, we got through that one. Now we just got to get through Christmas. And for Tanya and I, we have 2 Christmases. So we got like, okay, we call it American Christmas. So American Christmas, Serbian Christmas, like, okay, how are we going to get through this? And then again, it's just like, make the check. Okay, we made it. So how is it that we're going to just like figure out what it is we're feeling? So Jocelyn brought up, a good opportunity. How do we want to feel like we're connected, or how do we want to feel like it's about us? And so I found that paper thinking, and for me, I wasn't someone who was like a journaler by nature. So when someone gave me a prompt, it would just kind of help my juices start flowing in my mind. And then I would get the information out on paper and start to recognize what it is that I'm feeling, because it just didn't come naturally to me. So in the holiday guide, there's a couple journal prompts, and maybe just play with a couple of them. Decide, how do you want to feel, how you can feel joyous, even though you don't have children. Maybe it's this new holiday tradition, some of the things that you want to start to define what you find successful, or what you find fulfilling, or what you find happy for you, that maybe are outside of the norm of what you grew up doing or how you grew up celebrating. So when you get like clear on what it is that's going on in your mind, it really gives you like a framework of what it actually is that's going on. Is it that you don't have kids, or is it that you don't feel appreciated, or that you don't feel like you have something to give, or that your presence is enough just being you? So I encourage you to go through, there's 7 of them in the guide, and decide how you want to do them. If you're not like a regular journaler or paper thinker, maybe just take one every couple of days. I also say you could, do one, there's 7, so do one per week, one per day for a week, and then continue them on for the next couple of weeks and just see what comes up. Because, there's different things that we're learning as we're going through this process. And if you're working with me, we're going to continue working on some of our thought work and some of the coaching tools that we use, and just start to see how things evolve for you. So realizing that your purpose is not derived from whether you have a child or not is probably the main tool, or the main goal that I want people to recognize, is whether you have a child or not is not going to define who you are in this world. And of course, it's not something I don't believe that I'll ever have a day that like, I'm so glad I'm not a mom. Like, of course, there's moments where I'm like, okay, I'm so glad I don't have to teach my kids about school shootings or things like that, where I'm like, oh, I feel grateful for that. But I don't ever think I'll live my life being like, oh, I'm so glad I went through infertility and I did 7 years of fertility treatments and I didn't become a mom. Like, that doesn't seem true to me. But I can find moments of, you know what, I wanted to be a mom. I desired it so much and I tried my best. And even though it didn't happen, I continued to not give up on myself. And I continued to find tools that could help me live this enriched and fulfilling life. And realizing that your story doesn't have to end at infertility, and your story doesn't have to end because you didn't have a child or didn't find a partner, or your marriage didn't work out after your fertility journey ended, that you and your partner went separate ways. We've shared that, like, our marriages, like my relationship with my husband, I feel like has grown so much because of that struggle we went through. And because we've decided, okay, this is about us. Like, if it's not going to be kids, like, what is it that we're going to create together as a couple? And I try to do dedicated time where like I write stuff out like physically, but I'll pull up my notes section if I'm listening to a podcast, or if I hear or see something on social media and I'm like, oh, I want to like make note of that. I'll put it like in my notes section, and then I'll try to like review it and just sort of ask myself, like, what draws me to that concept? Because let's be honest, on social media, there's a lot of people that, share great tools and share great ideas. And then you feel like, okay, well, I'm making progress because I absorbed that tool, or that tool spoke to me, but we never fully develop like a plan from that tool. And so we feel like in our mind, we're like, oh, I'm trying all the things. I'm doing all this work on myself, but it's more like absorbing or taking in the information and not really transforming it into something further. So when you see a concept that speaks to you, and this is, something that I think really was transformative for me in like coaching, is I never knew how to like create like a action plan beyond just being attracted to a concept, being like, yeah, I knew I wanted to feel better, or I knew I wanted to be thriving again and feeling fulfilled again, but I just didn't know that I could create an action plan for myself. I just thought if I left enough years in the day or years in my life to grieve, then I would automatically at year 5 start feeling better. And so that's why I have my coaching community, because I think it's so important to like really dig deep. And so when we work together, and some of the folks here, we've worked together before or are actively working together, it really like challenges you. And we avoid wanting to dig deeper, I think, because it feels uncomfortable to say, oh my God, am I still like really talking about my infertility? Am I still feeling broken? Am I still feeling like I have no purpose? And when we realize, like, of course we feel this way, like we've always been ingrained in this society to think if you don't have a child, there's something wrong with you. But when we decide that that doesn't have to be our truth, and that we can maybe sometimes feel that way, but that doesn't have to be our blanket statement for our life, we can decide, like we create an I desire statement. Like when you have, like, when you know what you're desiring in your life, then that's when life starts to open up for you and you just become the driver in the seat of your future. When you start working with a coach, and we do this in my community, like, and I'm so grateful to have the tools that I received, because what I teach is what I've done in my own life. And I have a one-on-one, coaching practice. I also do a small group called Thrive After Infertility. And I find, and if anyone who's been in either parts of that part of my community can share, like, what is it that you get out of being part of a community, or what is it that you've gotten out of coaching? I would love for you to share.
If I could just jump in, Lana, as being a Thrive small group member. Oh, I know in adulthood, it's hard to find friends because of life, work, busyness. You're just not in that friendly young stage. Everybody in the world is your friend. Hi, I'm Sadia. My favorite crayon is this, and it's easy to make friends. In adulthood, it's a little different. So having that small group community, y'all, if I could just share, like, I just know in my phone, like if something is really bringing me down, or if there's like a win, something I could celebrate, like I have a little group of friends that I can share it with. And it's different from like my childhood friends who I grew up with, who it's just, kind of superficial now at this point in life where you just, share big news or something like that. But the nitty gritty, like it's so nice to be able to have like friends, real faces, real girls who I know can be like, yeah, girl, that sucks. Or, hey, what if you thought about it this way? Like that advice, just that validation. That's one thing. I think that concept of friendship, I did not expect that from like small group therapy. I was like, or, coaching. Because to me, it's like therapy in my soul. So I would say that's one thing that I wasn't expecting. Because I just thought, oh, it would just be like coaching friends. No, it feels deeper than that. And I know the ladies who are in small group, I hope they feel that same way, because it's just like, it's really nice to have that sense of friends who know what you're going through. And it's not just friends, just like circumstance, or you grew up in the same place or something like that. It feels like a deeper connection. And I didn't realize how much I craved that sense of connection. I just thought, oh, I'm independent. I'm a grown up. Grown-ups don't really need close friends. I kind of see through that now as kind of a defense thing. And now that I've kind of have this curated, honestly, it feels like curated based on how Lana has set up the group. That's really something I didn't realize would be important to me, that now I'm like, okay, like I look forward to every week. I know I've got that, that people in kind of my back pocket there. I can just pull out message. So that's something I just wanted to share from my personal experience.
I do my best to show up and offer the tools in my coaching programs that I know I needed, because when I realized that I wasn't going to be a mom, like I felt so lost, and I felt like there was no one around me that understood me. There was no one in my family that, had any idea of the depths of what I went through to become a mom. And to create a community. And that was like the hardest thing. When I finished my fertility treatments, I had the option of adoption or egg donor. And when neither of those were the options that my husband and I chose, that's all I never heard back from anyone. And so I remember just like being like, God, I just want to know that there's somebody else out there who's dreading Christmas this year, or somebody who feels that level of discomfort when they're asked a question by someone that they know loves them. But then I would be like so angry that I, see my aunt and she'd be like, honey, any baby news? And I just want like other women to not have to feel that loneliness. And when I realized that I didn't have to feel shame for a body that didn't do what I thought it was designed to do, and that I could show up and just be me and be vulnerable and tell my story. And that's why I started my podcast, was just to publicly tell my story. And I remember after my first couple episodes, my mom heard it and she was like, sweetheart, I had no clue you were going through this. And like, that's my mom. Like, she's like, I feel like I was a terrible mom that you were going through all these things and I never knew it. But that's when we have infertility or we don't have kids or we feel like we don't connect with the tribe, there's a lot of silence that goes on and we live in this like box of I'm alone and we don't create connections, and then we feel bad that we're jealous when our best friend has a baby shower and then we know it's never going to be us, and we're constantly the guest at everyone's event but we're never the star of the show. So the fact that I could create this community with my story has just been my greatest gift. So if you haven't worked with me yet and you're thinking about hiring a coach and thinking about working with someone, know that it is the most transformational work I think that you can offer yourself. And I think we live in a society where it's always do for others, and we're always the last one to take care of ourselves. So as we're going into the holidays, know that I'm your cheerleader. And regardless of where you are in your journey, you may think that your story is too hard and you've had more miscarriages than anyone you know, and that you've done more rounds of IVF or you've searched for the best partner to have a child with. Like, we all have our own subset of beliefs that we have about ourselves, but you're never too far gone to start believing in yourself and investing in yourself, because we're all we got. And that might feel very lonely to you, but when you get to this side of things, like, having yourself and having your back is like the greatest gift. And I've never felt more confident and more fulfilled in being in existence in my own self and looking in the mirror and being like proud of who I am. So I want you to know that that's available to you. And I really thank you for coming today.